The Oklahoma Sooners are making some changes that are going to propel them back to the college football playoff.
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Sooner Nation? Welcome to Locked On Sooners, and thank you for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there. Tune in and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. It's the last call for football on FanDuel. If you're a new customer, bet just $5 and get $200 in bonus bets if you win over at FanDuel. He's Jay Smith of Unfair Sports. I'm John Williams of Sooners Wire. And on today's show, we're going to talk about some college football playoff changes that still favor one team from Indiana, maybe a little bit too much. We'll discuss that coming up later in the show. The Oklahoma Sooners have a new athletic director. That'll come up in segment 2, but we got to start with stuff that's actually going to impact what happens on the field in 2026. The Oklahoma Sooners have a new strength and conditioning coach. Jerry Schmidt going to take a step aside, but still be in a liaison role, Jay.
Yeah, it seems like Jerry Schmidt, aka Schmitty, is moving into a role like an elite performance liaison role. So he's still with the program, but rumors have been going around that he was looking to retire. His contract actually does end here on Saturday. So it appears that instead of him just retiring and letting the contract kind of go out, he's going to transition into another role and still be a part of the program. Now, remember, Jerry Schmidt is 63 years old, so it would make sense if he decides that he wants to go ahead and step away and do other things with his life, while at the same time, he's still spry and still wants to be involved with a lot of this stuff. So it makes sense they would throw him in a new role. And I think we would all want to receive that, right? We appreciate what he's done. Some believe that he's a little too tough and that there needs to be some adjustments there on the strength side. And it sounds like there's going to be a change, and that person should be, I guess, the new director of sports enhancement and strength and conditioning would be James Dobson, who we brought on to staff back in January of 2022.
Yeah, so an internal promotion. It sounds like for Jerry Schmidt, he's going to be a strength and conditioning coach emeritus, right? This is what you see professors do often listen, hey, I'm still going to be around and I still kind of want to do some things, but I don't want to do things full time. So yeah, there are going to be some adjustments made and things are going to look a little bit different for Oklahoma moving forward. But how do you feel like this is going to impact, winter workouts, that are happening right now, as well as spring ball, fall camp, summer workouts? What do you think is going to be the biggest impact that we see, or the biggest difference we see from James Dobson?
Yeah, well, it sounds like James has taken over this week. So he's been the one running things throughout the week for us, the winter workouts, more so the initial baseline testing for your transfer guys, your true freshmen, as well as, your return players as school started earlier this week. So Coach Dobson's been there running things now. So, but to me, I think the biggest change you're going to see is he embraces like the modern medicine and modern techniques and stuff to do in strength and conditioning or whatnot. He's very much progressive when it comes to that. He's willing to adjust and adapt. And we talked about this on Friday, John. Like, the one thing Oklahoma's going to have to do in adjustments in this era of college football, you can't just go out there and beat the crap out of each other nonstop in practice. Think it's going to work. You ain't going to have a whole bunch of superstars right behind each one of your players. Your depth is a little bit thinner in comparison because you can't stack talent upon talent upon talent unless it's really young talent. And depending on the position in the trenches, usually your young talent aren't physically at the spot you want them to be, right? R. Mason Thomas, when he got here, he was 6'2", like 210-ish, right? He finished out 240, so now he's finished out. So he's thickened up and he's gotten to the size you need him to be his second season. That's when you start to see him really propel. That usually happens in the trenches. Your O-line and your D-line come in about 20, 25 pounds less than you want them to be, or they're about 20 or 30 pounds overweight because it's more baby fat than it is true muscle or refined muscle. So because of that, you're going to have to adjust. So I think that Dobson's going to be able to do that. He has a very good track record, John. He spent time with Vanderbilt before he came to Oklahoma. He was part of the Derek Mason regime. They were okay. Had some 5-win seasons, 6-win seasons. They were decent, but it just did not pan out. But before that, though, John, he was at Nebraska with Bo Pelini and was a part of that program. Now, remember, when Bo was there, they won a minimum of 9 games all 7 seasons there. They won like 9 games. They won 10, and they won 10. They won 9. They won 10. They won 9. They won 10. Then he got fired for winning 9 games because at Nebraska, that is below their standard, and they've sucked ever since. So my recommendation is everybody understand that things could be worse for you. But he was a part of some winners. One of the biggest names you probably could think of that he trained, Ndamukong Suh. I would like us to make another Ndamukong Suh here, if that's possible.
We've got a guy that has the potential to be that kind of a guy in a David Stone. So, and I think that's going to be the area that we're going to see maybe some. I think offensive line is the area that needs to have the biggest enhancements. Yeah. If there's anything that hasn't necessarily gone well in Brent Venables' era, is I feel like the offensive line just hasn't been strong enough at the point of attack. And I think that's really the simplest way to say it. How many 3rd and shorts, 4th and shorts have we seen this team fail on during Brent Venables' time as the head coach? And I mean, he's the defensive guy, he's the head coach, but the strength and conditioning program that came in when he came in didn't develop these guys enough to where they could really move the pile and create movement on short yardage plays, whether it was in the Big 12 or in the SEC. I feel like that's been a constant battle. Red zone offense, a constant battle for this team. And so that's going to be the area that I'm going to be looking to see, okay, can we make significant strides, especially with our 3 young offensive linemen in Michael Fasusi, Eddy Pierre-Louis, and Ryan Fodje? Can they make some significant strides to add strength and mature physically, so that when you're going into the SEC play in 2026, you're going up to Ann Arbor to play Michigan week 2 of this season. Is the offensive line going to be able to create more movement in the run game and create a more consistent running game? That's where I want to see some immediate results.
And that's what I'm hoping as well. I want to see it in the trenches. But what's always fascinating is that the defensive side seems to always have been super strong and ready to go. Offensive line dealt with a lot of injuries, and the bodies just were getting beat up. So, we talked about the brand of physical football that we want to play here. There's going to be collateral damage, which has shown to be only on your offensive side. It seems to be the offensive line is the one that seems to get beat up all the time. And so it's going to be a lot of changes and adjustment in the approach when it comes to them. More than anything, I think that's where we need to see the biggest changes, the biggest adjustments. We need to see players, we need to do things a lot differently. So I'm expecting that to be the change. I'm expecting there to be a better adoption as to how we get this offensive line going. Like you said, we need push. The last time I remember really seeing a lot of push was that 2023 season, man. We really got a lot of good push that year. And then going into 2024, a lot of those players, a lot of those reserve players, they bounced because they didn't think that they were going to be able to survive or make it up the depth chart. And then in 24, you have to start over. Luckily, in 25, you're bringing back over the 5 players that could potentially start on this line. If we just go off of starts from last season, over 2,000 snaps combined, 2,600 to 2,663 to be exact. I actually ran that number last night. So thought that was very interesting to see that we're bringing back a ton of snaps from last season, and that'll help. But I do think that Dobson's going to do he'll probably do a lot of stuff similar to Schmidt. Like I said, he's been here since 2022, so it's not like he doesn't know how he do it. But what I've heard is that he's going to make a lot of changes. I'm actually waiting to see if there's going to be staff changes. He may not retain a lot of people. He may bring in some new folks. He may bring in some different type of positions. I don't know, but I do know that the expectation is that the standard's going to be raised and we're going to get better. And the goal is for the offense to respond similar to the way the defense did over the last few years.
And this is one of those things where anytime a change is made, a lot of times we want to be maybe critical of the guy that was the coach. But let's not forget how much good Jerry Schmidt helped create for the University of Oklahoma as the strength and conditioning coach from the Bob Stoops tenure, and even at times during the Brent Venables tenure. Even if some areas were a bit of a struggle, there was still a lot of good too. And that dude is one of the legends of the modern Oklahoma era for sure.
Yeah. I mean, look at it. that 23 team was solid. We were a couple play calls away and injured quarterback or injured Danny Stutzman away from finishing with 11 wins that year.
Drake Stoops' defensive pass interference that went uncalled.
Hey,
away.
Exactly.
I'll never
There's a lot of
it.
plays.
I will carry that to my deathbed, Jay.
I can't, because you should have never put yourself in that situation, and that's from play calling leading up to that play. But you're right.
You should never have put yourself in that situation by staying in the Big 12 as long as you did.
Exactly. There we go. But I can totally see us. Look, last year we were physical, and teams pointed it out. Like I said, we were injuring other teams' offensive linemen like crazy, and I don't think it was about purpose. We were just physically outdoing them. I hope we continue that, but also protecting the bodies of our offensive linemen so that we can have the same starting five through most of the season next year.
All right, coming up, the Oklahoma Sooners have a new athletic director. What does it mean for the future of the athletics program? We'll discuss all that coming up next here on Locked On Sooners.
It's the last call for football on FanDuel. One final Sunday, one last kickoff, the final chance to get in on the action before the NFL season officially comes to a close. This is Super Bowl 60, and FanDuel is making sure you're right in the middle of it with a special offer just in case for the biggest game of the year. Whether you're backing the favorite, riding the underdog, which seems intriguing right now, or building one last same game parlay. This is the game everyone's been waiting for. This is where predictions turn into plays, stats turn to storylines, are in every snap, feels bigger. It's the perfect way to cap off the season and make the Super Bowl even more exciting for kickoff to the final whistle. So if you're a new customer, bet just $5 and you'll get $200 in bonus bets if you win. Make it count, because after the Super Bowl, the season is over. Last call for football on FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of Super Bowl 60. Visit FanDuel.com to get started.
Once again, thanks for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there. Tune in and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Also, go check out the Everydayer Club, lockedonpodcast.com/everydayer club for ad-free audio at Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you download and listen to podcasts. You can get it ad-free through the Everydayer Club. And you can also get a members-only invite to a Discord channel chat. Discord is an app that you can download to your phone, to your laptop, your desktop computer, where you can interact with everydayers across the network, as well as hosts as well. Some of your favorites like Jay and I, and some of your second listens, like our guy Rylan Stiles, a Locked On Thunder. You can interact with him, ask him questions, talk hoops with him, or you could talk ball with us across, again, through the Everydayer Club, lockedonpodcast.com/everydayer club, $5 a month or $50 for the year. Again, ad-free audio access of Locked On Sooners. Jay, the Oklahoma Sooners have a new athletic director, Roger Denny, coming over from Illinois.
Yeah, Roger has an interesting story, right? He came from Illinois, before that 15 years in law. And so he brings that law mentality. Randall Stevenson, who's an advisor today, he's still going to be around on staff, so he's not going anywhere. But Denny brings in a lot of, like I said, a lot of experience, 15 years practicing law in St. Louis, and that's where he was a partner. Also does the corporate finance. He understands compensation. He was a part of the contract negotiations with the coaches there at Illinois, which also has led to Illinois being, they've been some pretty good programs. He's a part of the coaching searches and everything. So he's been a part of the transition for Illinois being a better team. Heck, they were ranked in the top 10 to start the year. People thought they were going to be really good, beastly. I think they finished with 9 wins. So not bad, right? They did some solid stuff for Illinois in itself. He also was a part of a massive fundraiser where he helped secure a $100 million gift that was announced in fall of 2025. I'm wondering, can he bring that with him here as a part of the package deal? That would be great. No, but maybe he can go convince some of our donors, our big donors, our billionaire, fan base, to get them to put a big gift in. Get us some, basketball players. Get us some more football guys. Whatever you can do. Think that he could probably do something like that. But he does have good experience in critical areas that we're going to need as we transition into this new world of college football that keeps literally changing every single month.
Yeah, I think a lot of people were surprised, Jay, that they didn't hire somebody with sitting athletic director experience, a lead guy of a program, but he does bring a lot of valuable experience to Oklahoma. Again, you mentioned the legal stuff. He's been an associate athletic director there at Illinois. And I asked our guy, Sonny Verma of Locked On Illini, what his thoughts on him were. And he says, he's been the right-hand man for AD Josh Whitman, and many consider Josh in the conversation for best AD out there. I would be very excited if I were Oklahoma. So I think that's intriguing. The fact that he's somebody that comes in with a lot of negotiation experience with some of the name, image, and likeness stuff, the revenue sharing things. He obviously is really strong as a fundraiser. Those are the kind of things that you need to have in the modern era of college football and modern era of athletics. It's not just about, being somebody that can go raise funds. That's an integral part of it, but you also have to have this other experience. Having that law degree and that law experience is going to be valuable in helping to iron out and negotiate these contracts, as we're seeing across the country, whether it's at Washington or Duke. A lot of these revenue sharing and NIL deals, it just creates complications and creates question marks, and having somebody with his experience is going to be invaluable for Jim Nagy, for Trey Young, for these different leads of the athletics programs, so that as they're trying to iron out these deals with players and athletes, there's no confusion. There's no miscommunication. There's none of the stuff that we've seen at different times, either at Oklahoma or at other programs, that could lead to hurt feelings and guys bailing because there was a miscommunication in what was going to be offered or paid out and stuff like that. So I think, again, potentially streamlining some of that stuff and having somebody with that kind of experience is going to be valuable. Will it work and will he be this great AD? Time will tell. But I think the experience is relevant to where we're heading in collegiate athletics.
Yeah, I think the thing that intrigues me most is, what is he going to do? Like, is he going to get the opportunity, which I kind of expected. Some people have been speculating that they don't think they think that he'll be burdened with doing this, but if he'll get the opportunity of really picking his own coach on the men's basketball side, things have not been going very well there. Mm-hmm. To me, I believe that Josie will probably go ahead and end up relieving Porter of his duties before Roger gets here, and then Roger can go in through the end of the season and focus on bringing in his own coach, right? A lot of ADs want to bring in the guys they want to hire. They feel like certain coaches are for them, and that was always a possibility. And that's the good thing is, if he does, he starts February 15th. That gives basically the Porter an opportunity to figure it out and get Oklahoma back on the track to try to make the tourney, or he gets let go. And I'm hoping they go ahead and we've been trying to say it for a couple years, go ahead and just make the move and try to figure it out. It was a 10-year anniversary this year of Oklahoma making the Final Four. Whew, how far the mighty has fallen. So yeah, this may be an opportunity for him. Plus, the other big thing I think with Roger Denny is going to be really on the fundraising side. We pointed it out. He got that big gift at Illinois. I'm really intrigued to see how he works with the base here, the alumni base here, and the fundraising, and what he can help accomplish in that, because Oklahoma's on a pretty good and pretty solid upward trajectory. Women's basketball's looking solid. Softball's always been killing it. Football was starting to return, right? You got another 10-win season. You got a 10-win season being in the SEC when everyone told us that wasn't going to happen. Those seasons were over. Right. Doesn't feel like it. Feel like more can come down the line as well, based upon especially how the schedule is lined up for Oklahoma. We can do that. Hey, if he's a part of helping build up the funds to where all of that stuff continue to run properly, yeah, like you said, he can have a nice long tenure. Josie was here, 27 years, something like that. He can put another 20, 25 years as well.
We'll see where we go. Again, yeah, it's the fundraising, and that men's basketball coaching decision is going to be really, really intriguing. Man, I don't know if Josie does it or if it's the new guy that makes the move, but coming from the Big Ten, he's going to have a lot of connections to some really potentially strong basketball hires. I think that's intriguing. All right, We have some changes to the college football playoff format coming in 2026. We'll discuss that coming up next here on Locked On Sooners. This is Mazda's moving the game forward for those who show there's more to the score than what's on the screen. What you saw from Aaliyah Chavez this week against South Carolina was absolutely phenomenal. Her overtime performance, 15 points on 5 of 5 and 4 of 4 from 3 was phenomenal, but it just goes to highlight that she does so much off the court to put herself in position to have those kind of performances. Really reminds us of what it really takes to raise the bar. It's that extra work off the court, dialing in every detail, giving it that extra fire, that grit, and that I never quit. Aaliyah Chavez, the Oklahoma Sooners, never quit in their big upset win over the South Carolina Gamecocks. And Mazda puts that same passion into every model. Highlights make the reel. What it took to get there makes it count. There's more to a Mazda because there's more to you. And once again, thanks for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there tuning in. Subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network. And thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. All right, Jay. So there's been this big discussion of should the college football playoff expand? Should it stay at 12? The Big Ten and the SEC are the two big power brokers in that discussion. And the Big Ten wanted to go to 24. The SEC said, hey, actually, we and the Big 12 and the ACC and the group of 5, we're actually all kind of cool with going to 16. They couldn't come to an agreement. So for 2026, we're going to stay at 12 teams.
We're sticking to 12, which makes sense. Like I love that the SEC stance is we'll go to 16. Let's go incremental. And then you get the Big Ten. Like, I want to go to 24. Let's go huge and figure out how to make it work at that big. And the SEC's like, nah, stick to 16. Or we can stay at 12. I have no problem being at 12. 12 doesn't bother us. Yeah. So to me, it feels like it's always going to keep rolling back to 12 until more people agree to go to around 16. I think 20 might be the max that everyone would agree with. But the Big Ten's wanting all of these guaranteed, bids and all. It's going to make it a problem. And a lot of these other conferences are like, we deserve, pieces of the pie too. Yes, the Big Ten keeps winning championships. They won the last 3, but that don't mean they're going to win them forever. Then we got to see if they're going to make an SEC run. We're only at 3. We still got time to see if that happens, but I digress from there. 12, we need to reduce it personally. I just think that we need to go less. We need to get back to 8. I think 8's probably more of a realistic number that makes sense. People can say the season's over if you don't win a certain amount of games. Right now, we're arguing about which 3-loss team deserves to be in the playoffs. You increase it, it's going to be arguing about which 4-loss team deserves to be in the playoffs. And it just doesn't make it doesn't make any sense. No one cares about the top. We only care about the last ones to get in. So we could do 25, and we're going to argue about the 26th team, right? That's just basically the nature of the beast. Yeah. So to me, I'm here for it. But seeing that the big adjustment that everyone agreed to when we went to 12, the big one that's about to come down, the biggest domino, is Notre Dame guaranteed a spot if they land in the top 12. That's going to be funny to watch coming down the line, John.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I don't understand necessarily why the conferences feel like they have to provide that for Notre Dame. I get Notre Dame has been a blue blood brand for a long, long time. They've been a historically good program, but they're just one team. They get the benefit that the 135 other teams don't get. They don't get that guarantee in the football championship or football bowl subdivision. So the fact that Greg Sankey, Tony Petitti, Brett Yormark, whoever is the ACC commissioner, that they're willing to just hand that over to Notre Dame and like, yeah, top 12, you're good to go. You just make the playoff, you're fine. When Notre Dame controls their schedule, they control how difficult or how easy it's going to be, which you look at the 2026 schedule and it's not great. I mean, BYU, Miami, that's about it. Then they're not playing USC. because Lincoln Riley is kind of scared, but I don't think Notre Dame's going to be sad about it because that's one less difficult team that they have to play potentially difficult. So that, man, it just seems weird that they would kind of bend the knee to Notre Dame and say, yes, you get all of what you want because you're Notre Dame, when the rest of us that are power teams and blue blood programs have to fight it out with the SEC. Michigan and Ohio State, they got to fight it out in the Big Ten to earn themselves a spot. Miami's got to fight it out in the ACC. And if you would apply this year's rules, which in 2026, it's going to be the 4 Power 4 conference champions that get an automatic bid. It doesn't matter if they're ranked high enough to get that. So in 2026, if you have an 8-5 or 8-4 Duke team that wins the ACC, they're in the playoff, which would have bumped Miami out. Based on the 2026 rules, Miami would have been out of the playoff because Notre Dame would have gotten in because they were still sitting inside the top 12.
Yep.
Duke would have gotten in. Yep. And you still have to put at least one group of 5 or now group of 6 team in the playoff. So these new rules would have kept national champion runner-up Miami Hurricanes out of the playoff if we used them for 2025.
Which is pretty wild to say. That's in any of them, right? You would run that same problem with any other circumstance if we were dealing with it. But that's also where things get annoying. We need to just find a structure that makes sense. Plus realizing that it's never going to truly make sense. It doesn't work. Not with 130 teams. You can't. College football was never meant to have a national championship like that. Supposed to have all these, the AP vote their people, the coaches think whatever. You had multiple different people that would give out their titles because you had too many teams and no one can't play everybody. If you want to really do it to where it matters, just do the conference champions and have them play in a tournament and that be it. Because then in that case, you're guaranteed that, it's based upon your conference. Yes, some conferences will be tougher than others, but you can't do anything about that. It's just, it'll never be fair. And I think that's the thing is we've got to stop trying to figure out how to do it fair and just find a system that's just simple. We simplify it and get rid of all the complexities.
I think the thing I do like about this new format is that it does put an emphasis on the conference championships, because I think some of the fear and maybe some of the reluctance to go to 24 teams in a playoff is that it potentially does away with the conference title games. Well, the SEC really values their conference championship game. I think that's one of those situations that they love. And I think it's a cool game in Atlanta that SEC title game is. And so keeping the SEC championship as a valuable part of this whole structure, I think is important. Now, you're generally going to have both of those teams in the college football playoff anyway, but it doesn't minimize it. It doesn't take it away the game. If you go to 24 teams, you potentially have to get rid of it because the schedule is such an issue in college football. Yeah. And to me, that's more of an issue than what the college football playoff looks like, because next year you're going to be playing the national championship game on this day, January 26th in 2027. And it's ludicrous because school will have already started and the transfer portal will already have come and gone. It doesn't make any sense to go this deep into January trying to play college football. They've got to get that figured out before they even consider expanding again, because how are you going to fit a 16-team playoff, a 24-team playoff into the current schedule structure? It's not going to work.
It don't work. The playoffs need to be done January 1. We've got to figure out how to do it like all the other ones. D2 do it, D3 do it. Figure out how to do it that way. We should be done January 1 or at the latest playoff weekend for the NFL. You don't want to compete with them, fine. Put the national championship on a Friday night right before the NFL playoffs start. Be done with it. Saturday night will be the best. You'd probably make way more money that way, but do it on a Friday night. Monday night sucks.
Yeah.
Friday night.
That's terrible.
Be done with it.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
A lot of changes. It's an ever evolving landscape that is college football, and it's constantly going to be changing. And I kind of hope we don't get to 24. I think 12 feels right. Arguing over 10-win teams at least feels reasonable, right? Because a 10-win season means
double
something.
digit.
It means something to coaches. It means something to programs. It means something. An 8-win team making a playoff like Duke would have, or a 9-win team arguing over that kind of stuff, it just doesn't feel the same way. So
it's so terrible.
You gotta keep it to where these things still mean something, and making the playoff is still really hard to do. You make it 24 teams and it's not going to be as hard, and it's not going to be as valuable when you're talking about the 24th best team making the playoff. It just doesn't. Yeah, it's gross. So anyway, all right, that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Sooners. Thanks so much for tuning in, being a part of the show. Subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell to let you know when new episodes drop. Follow Jay at Unfair Sports. Go check him out at Unfair Sports. You can follow me at John 9 Williams and read my work covering the Sooners at SoonersWire.com. The show is at Locked On Sooners on all of your favorite social media platforms. But until next time, he's Jay Smith. I'm John Williams. We'll talk to you then. Boomer
Sooner.
That's not the right one. That's the right one.